Oh, Triflix cast. Welcome all.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Triflix cast. My name's Tristan. We got Cole over there. Switch to Cole with the cameras. Let us see what Cole is. And then there's David. What are we doing? We're making a podcast. Why? Because we're in an industry where we make short films and also do commercial work. We do real estate work. We do everything.
I didn't think you were going to say short.
Yeah.
We make short.
Dude, we make some short work. Short work of this intro.
Roll it.
Boo, boo. What's up?
Everybody's feeling pretty mellow today.
Yeah.
I'm just getting that vibe from all three of us.
It's been a day.
We've been busy.
Usually we shoot a little bit later, or maybe it feels later than. So today the sun's still out, and we're recording at the same time, I guess. And
The same time as last time.
yeah,
4:30.
but I feel
remember.
so much more exhausted, and I think it's I don't know. We're just kind of out of it.
We've just been busy.
We've been working. What have we been busy doing, Cole?
We've been working like crazy. That's why, I was telling Tristan today, I gotta get caught up on some content, give you guys what you want, what you need. It's been hard. We've been shooting houses like crazy. We've got a lot of projects that Tristan is working tirelessly to edit, and pump out into the world.
You know, we used to have a series called Triflix Fix, and it was
Triflix.
Yeah, and it was like just this series that I was putting out of like content weekly. And I was like, get your fix. I kind
of like that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll bring it back. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, no, it was
some feedback from our fans out here. We'll bring it back if you ask.
Yeah, we would put out a short film.
You look so sad.
Me?
Yeah,
I'm just really out of it. It's been a long day.
Yeah, you okay? It's a long day.
You should be sad.
It is. So we would put out a video every Friday, and that was like a short film, and then we would have a follow-up the next Friday that was the BTS and the explanation for how we were doing it. And I guess we're kind of doing that now. We've rebranded it, and it's less consistent than it was back like 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's okay. We're completing client work and we're getting busier, which was the goal.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I got money now, you know.
Yeah,
that's what they say.
But like we've talked about over and over again, we're just continuing down that path of like figuring out organization of everything. So it's about being like, oh, this didn't work so great, so what do we do next time?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, you get money doing a lot of things. Is it something we want to do?
Huh?
What?
I'm just saying.
Money?
Like, yeah,
we do things for money?
Yeah, we're doing projects for money now. And
well, that's true. Yeah.
It's like, do we want to do it?
It's do we want to do it?
Do we want to do it?
Well, I mean,
we wake up in the morning.
It's not.
Do I want to do
get to the
this?
point, and I mean, as everybody hopes they do when you start a business, is you hope you get to the point where you have regular, reoccurring work,
right?
Or enough work to keep you busy. It's like, okay, well, an average person does 40 to 50 hours a week. So let's say we have 70 hours worth of work. Eventually, you can't do all of it.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
So then you need to be selective.
Yeah, and not just be selective. But to grow.
Yeah. Or hire more
Tristan's
people.
like, let's be selective. I'm like, let's get the next person in here. Yeah, that's the goal.
So you're saying you have to be selective to grow?
Triflix is hiring.
No.
No, we're not selecting people.
David's over here. He's like, no, give me more hours.
You've just been slim lately. You've been busy with other things.
Yeah, well, I mean, think what was it? Last week we had was it last week? The Love Chapel?
I sent you a ton of work last week.
That was last week.
We had to grind a lot of stuff out real quick.
Because I was gone over the weekend. Yeah, it was last week.
Things that were previously not on the back burner were then put back onto the back burner.
Yes.
Yeah.
But David came in clutch for us, for sure.
Yeah.
Because we have a larger project that we've been trying to put out, the coffee house videos, and we're very close on that. But
by the time this podcast is out, they'll be out. They're already in the ether. They're already there.
Sorry, yeah.
At least one of them, because it depends on when they publish. I don't know what their consistency is going to be.
That's true.
But
it's a series.
As soon as we get the approval, we're going to be posting them on our socials as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we got more stills than actual BTS video.
Have we even talked about this at all? I don't think we did 2 weeks ago.
I don't think we did either.
No.
I think maybe we talked about it like a future project, but we didn't give them kind of like the lowdown. But I mean,
yeah. So I think the last project we talked on here was probably Coach's Cuts, and that was a barbershop video we did with previs and everything.
Yeah, we haven't gone through projects in a while.
No,
with that.
We've got quite a few right now. I don't have Trello up talked about that already, but
we'll start with Coffee
project
House.
management software. With Coffee House 5, we went through and we pitched some ideas to them, and they had some ideas of their own already. And just kind of mellowed those out and hashed everything up to get something that we both agreed would be suitable, something that they thought represented their brand, but something that we thought would perform well on the platforms they were choosing, which specifically they want Instagram.
Yes. They say that's where most of their traffic comes from. So
yeah. And they know their demographics. So it's like, all right, well, let's make some content that's suitable for it. So we ended up pitching 3 videos, short little 1.5 to 2 minute videos explaining their locations and how they got started, their food, and then kind of like the reasons why. Now those reasons are spread out throughout those 3 videos, but they have a video for each of those topics that they really focus on. And it was cool because we got to go in after hours and shut everything down and run it the way we wanted to.
It was awesome.
Now there were some issues that we were figuring out as we're going, and that's whenever it comes to a product that's time sensitive to create, like a pastry or a drink or something like that, there's not really can you slow down while I get the shot? So you're running and trying to keep up as fast as you can. And that just led to quite a few unexpected problems that we got to find solutions for in the moment.
It's not too difficult. It's just there's some pre-production things that we can do that we're not doing currently that I think will help to streamline the process. And again, all that comes with experience. And for us, we've done these things before, but when the scale starts to move up and we have more moving pieces and more people, more gear, just in general, you're like, I've got 2 angles today. I've got to work on this. And we did kind of jam everything into one night though, too. And we were like, there was a lot of footage that night that we got in one kind of swoop. So again, just it all boils down to organization. I think.
It's all like the organization and the pre-production side of things, but it's also sometimes the shoot, even with pre-production, doesn't go as expected. You're always going to get those hurdles. One thing that we have learned, a huge takeaway for us, was making sure that if it is an interview style or a talking piece where we see a talking head and then having B-roll included, we want to make sure that we are at minimum shooting the interview before the B-roll.
Yes.
And then take the time to go watch back through the footage and be like, okay, here were your talking points. But in addition to that, if possible, to get the scripts ahead of time, and then we can shot list and plan what all we're going to B-roll, because it's a coffee shop. We've all seen commercials for coffee shop on Instagram, or maybe not even a commercial, but you just see like these beautiful B-roll shots of like swooping in and then the coffee's like pouring and then the beans are flipping around, and it's cool dynamic, and it was fun going in and just kind of guerrilla shooting it, but it does lead to an inefficient workflow. It's a really creative one, but it's inefficient.
It's costing us time in the back portion of the post-production part of it, which is unfortunate, but we're now we kind of know, get as much as we can together, plan out our shots, and kind of go from there. So
and in this case there wasn't really an option because they have a limited time of when they could shoot, and it was after hours, and in order to fit in the baking segment of the pastries and the biscuits, we had to shoot it in that way. So it's just a lesson learned.
Fun shoot though. I mean, to be able to see the behind the scenes and they're making the stuff and you're figuring out, this is a local spot, which is the fun part is, we're able to see this and also put it out into the community to say they're doing more and there's more to be seen that they haven't shown you yet. And that's kind of the cool thing is we're helping to reveal kind of the essence of the business, and hopefully that turns into more business for them. And it'll be awesome. I mean, I pushed so hard for this job, and Tristan knows that. I was constantly send him a message, go into the shop, even just go in and take some shots of somebody else, do still photography. I did a couple headshot sessions in the building, and so it's just being front of mind and pushing the sale. And it was just hey, we would love to help. How can we help? Can we help? Would you be interested to help? And then after they said yes, it was when can we schedule? Can we schedule now? Let's go ahead and do this. And then it all kind of, went from 0 to 100.
Yeah, we can start in like 3 weeks too. Hey, we're doing it this week.
Right.
And we need it like by then. And it's like, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Also, she's leaving earlier now, so we have even less time to get it done. And it's like, okay, we'll make it work. Don't worry. We got you.
And I think that Coffee House, this project we're doing with them, I think this represents a larger production, resource heavy type of production. And when we have something like that, especially at our capacity, we have the smaller productions that are, quicker turnaround, something that's a little more simpler, that's in the wheelhouse of like, hey, you can throw it together, get it out the door in a timely manner. Those happen all at the same time.
Timely manner, my butt. I had that done in an hour.
No, well, that's what I'm saying.
I shot it, I brought it home, and I sent it to the client in 2 hours.
I somehow don't believe you.
No,
It was.
I witnessed this.
Yeah?
This was a legit occurrence. And
I wasn't there. I can't attest to it.
Well, a disclaimer.
Yeah?
That might not always be your experience,
Yeah.
future client. So just giving you a heads up that
I'm saying we have a benchmark that we want to hit internally. That is not the agreement between us and our client. We did not tell him it's going to be done in 3 hours. It was, hey, can you have it by like 3 or 4 days from now? And we're like, yeah, sure. And I just had a little bit of time in between projects, so I figured why not? Let's just pump it out quick and we'll go on to the next thing.
And it was a beautiful. We got to shoot for Coaches.
Yeah, that actually was another Coaches. That was our second one for them.
Yeah, they called us back.
Yeah.
And that was a quick little kind of community update video from the owner.
Yeah.
Coach Ray.
It outperformed his first one, actually.
It does not surprise me though. It was such a heartfelt, kind of his sentiment to the community and to his life and to the people that surround him and help him. It was really cool. And I mean, it was a very quick turnaround, nice, quick shoot. But man, I thought we were talking about the color grade and the audio and just like everything was spot on. That's like one of those projects you shoot out and you're like, no revisions.
Yeah. No, it was beautiful. So there was a couple of things. We shot this one, I think, after Coffee House.
Yes.
So I took a lot of the things that we were just talking about of workflow and what we liked and what we didn't like. And one of the things we hadn't even discovered yet was we prefer interviews before the B-roll.
Yes.
And this was our proof of concept. When we shot this, we did the talking portions. And then as he's discussing it, I'm watching the shot and I'm trying to listen a little bit. You're listening to audio, so you're listening a little bit. And we're able to hear his story and what elements he's wanting to capture, even though we didn't have a script.
Right.
It didn't make a difference because we were able to go right afterwards and we're like, oh, he talked about this, this, and this. Shoot. And then when we came back, one thing that's been different is last couple of weeks, been doing a lot of research on color grading, color matching, color balancing, and making it so that skin tones look really natural and getting all your camera angles to look identical. So that way, whenever you start to push the grades and make it so it's like really blue and really orange here and colorful and vibrant, it looks uniform. And all those little details and things are what combined to make that become a 3-hour turnaround.
Yep.
And if we went in and did that 3 years ago, there's no way, because it's only by doing all these iterative projects that you become better.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's the biggest selling point. I'm putting on my producer hat here. Hold on. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the biggest selling points for using Triflix for the video work, and not just video work, but in general, because
3-hour turnarounds.
Oh gosh. But specifically because everybody here is willing to continually up their game every single project. We're always adding, we're always learning, we're always researching, constant, always trying to figure out what can we do to make this better and trying new techniques. Mm-hmm. We're not scared to get outside of that rut that people can get into where you're like, I've got my process, I'm moving down this way, it works for me, it's been working, keep your head down.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that you hold on to, of course, but everybody here is so willing to go, hey, you know what? I'm going to put the time and effort and the work into this to make this better every single time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's about, owning a business it's not about making a money or doing something you enjoy. I feel like, I mean, you know, there's benefits.
Those are on the list.
Those are bonuses.
Definitely one of the biggest perks.
Yeah.
But the thing about
owning a business is just about the heartaches. No,
it's none of.
I know.
It's all of those and none of those. If you go into a business for any of those reasons, it's not going to last very long.
Yes,
because you're gonna get burnt out. But the idea of starting a business and you liking what you do, it's cool. But whenever it's about you growing and you figuring out the best way of doing things, and it's not about just how efficient or how much money can I make. Those are bonuses, things you should keep in mind. But whenever you're going into the reason of trying to better yourself, your product's just going to keep getting better and better, and you won't get stagnant. You won't say, it's not a cookie cutter, you know, like you get your dough and then you put it on, you take your cutter and you're like, same project. And you got 15 cookies that you give one to each company. There's nothing unique about it. Your product doesn't change. And after a while, you're just going to start to question why you're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, if you're doing it for money, there's so many easier, so many
This is true.
less stressful ways of making money than running a business.
Right? Oh my gosh, yes.
But you don't do it for those reasons. They're they're perks.
I forget. I think it was Mike Rowe who said it, that that it's not always a good thing to follow your passion, because with everybody, sometimes you're passionate about something, but you might just really suck at it.
Yeah.
And
That's
you just
true.
may not have the skill or talent to make that work.
Yeah.
Not in reference to us or anything, but like he was encouraging people, just go find something that needs to be done and find a way to become passionate about that.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was actually something your cousin, my best man at the wedding day, and he taught me when I was back in college, was the idea of learning to love work regardless of what it is, or it's like it's the mindset, and then you know there's some backing behind that, like with our faith and what we believe. It's like that's like the Protestant work ethic. Now I don't carry too much of that, because like I have a little different perspective on it, but still there's a lot of value and guidance in learning to love what you're doing, because even if it's not enjoyable, to take something away from it, learn from it and grow from it, and find a way to improve it. I was always told, leave it better than the way you found it. And that applies to people, to objects, to property or whatever. And if you can go into an industry or a job or whatever the situation is and find a way to make it just a little bit better, it's like, that's your legacy and your impact on not just the world, but like that's your impact on your friends and your family and your coworkers, and that all adds up in the end. So yeah, I like micro.
No,
no.
There's always something to take away from situations, whether at work or personal life. It's you know, the negatives teach you something just as much as the positives. Sometimes you learn more about the negatives.
Well, those are the memories that like you really hold on to, because that like when you're I don't know if I've mentioned on here, but it's like 2 a.m. and you're trying to go to sleep, and then you remember that stupid thing you did in third grade.
Yep.
You know, it's a bad thing, but at the same time, you're probably never going to do that again.
Yeah.
You know, there are some benefits to making mistakes. And that's if you can learn from them.
I haven't forgotten my tripod since I did that last year.
Which tripod exactly?
The tripod that I'm using is what you're wanting me to?
No. Which one have you not forgotten?
You're talking about that I haven't forgotten I used. It wasn't a tripod, but my ironing board tripod.
Yeah.
Yeah, more of a quad pod.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I finally invested in a better tripod, and I was like, you know.
Yeah.
I literally pulled that tripod out the other day, my old one. I had one that I was using and I liked it, but then I like lost it, or it broke or something. No, I think I left it at a shoot, something along those lines. And I was like, oh gosh, like I had to have one that day for a shoot. So I went into Best Buy, bought the first one I saw, and ran out so I could do my shoot. And I still have it because it's like I don't know, there's something about it. And
sentimental.
Yeah, but it's the worst. It's completely made out of plastic. I don't know if there's any metal on the whole thing. And every time you open it up, it's just like, you can see the legs bend in when you put the camera on it.
Sounds so bad. I don't even want to think about using that.
I used it for a long time. That put me through a lot of shoots.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I bought the Peak Design, I was like, what is this magic?
Yeah, that thing probably paid for itself 100 times over.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure it was like $30.
Yeah, one shoot, you could have bought 2 of them.
Yep. Would have been good to go.
Oh,
But that's the funny things about how all this works. And I finally bought a lens.
Oh, yeah, you got the wide angle.
This is the first lens I have bought since I started photography.
Really?
Never bought a lens.
How long's that?
Well, if you want to count it since my first camera, I had a D5300. That was like my technical first camera buy. And that was probably 2013, 2014.
Yeah, that makes you sound like you're not great at your job. What's the redeeming value here?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm saying like people want to hire us, and we're like, we never upgrade our equipment. So
Oh, yeah.
what's
Well,
the
here, I can
redeeming
bring it around
quality?
here.
Why,
So here's the
why
thing.
did it take you so long? And what's the benefit of this lens?
So, okay. So the cool thing is when I started with the 5300, I want to say that camera was like, I don't know, $500-$600.
Yeah, it's just starter.
Which for me at that time was a lot of money.
It's a big
It was hard
investment.
for me because it was either right before my first kid or it would have been a little bit after she was born, because that was kind of the whole reason I bought it, was that I already had Nikon lenses that I inherited from my parents. And they had a D11X, which was what I technically first started shooting on. But the one I bought was the 5300, so I used their lenses. But anyways, I'm going to make this a long story. Sorry. But so that first camera, like I said, was like $500 or $600. Well, I had no intent of making it make money for me. And then when I started shooting real estate shoots, which would have been my first actual like venture into a professional subcategory of photography, it just worked. I mean, it was just like, it did its thing. People were happy. The pictures looked good. And then the reason why I upgraded was a couple things. It was clarity. I was starting to lose clarity on my pictures.
Yeah.
After you use a shutter so many times, right? It was a mechanical shutter. So after you use it so many times, you start to, from what I'm told, is that you get some degradation from that. And then not only that, but the lenses were even older than the body. And so I started losing like autofocus function. It was the slowest, like it was like,
Just some like slow servos going on.
oh, it was so bad. And then finally, my lens just fell apart. It just like was done.
It just
What?
Just
Yeah, like it literally,
disintegrated.
like I was just having those issues. I took it apart.
Thanos snaps.
Pretty much. I took it apart and I fixed the parts that were having problems and everything like that. And I dumped out the plastic pieces that were broken inside of it and just kind of like put everything back together. And it worked for a little while longer. And then finally it just took a full crap on me.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Well, so you didn't just have one lens. You said you had multiple from the start. So like you weren't working with just one the entire time, right?
I was,
How many
yes.
did you have? I thought you said you had some from your parents.
So I had got 2. I got the, it was a very similar lens to what we have now. I think it was a 35 to 70 or 35 to 85, 30 to 85, something like that. And I used that primarily for the real estate. But then I also had the telephoto that we use now. But I mean, you can't use the telephoto for real estate. You know what I mean? Like,
see what you mean.
Yeah. So I was literally just going off of, and 2, like shooting at like 30 to 35 on a real estate shoot. I have no idea how I did it. I was backed into every corner, just all the way to the back, just shooting.
Oh man.
Yeah. I shoot 24s when we go, and now you just got the wide. I mean, you were shooting 24s as well.
Yeah, which 24 is much more in the pocket.
Yeah.
It's starting to get towards the high end, but you also have to think as well, I went from a crop sensor to a full frame.
Yeah. So that just zooms in on the image a little bit.
Exactly.
And you lose that area around.
Is that what in the pocket means? What is that? That phrase. You said in the pocket. What does that mean?
Oh, I meant in the pocket of lens size for real estate.
Yeah, like ideal.
Yeah, your
Okay.
ideal space to shoot, because you also don't want to shoot. Most people say don't shoot below 16.
Why do they say that?
well, you start to get a lot of lens distortion, and then everything starts to get real funky. You know, I mean, you start to get that fisheye effect, and I mean, you're already getting it at, you know, you're already getting it at 16, but it's much easier to correct and to fix. You're not, and you know, you're not as much vignetting as well. So there's all those things that come into play that just don't work out great for real estate.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't throwing around like a whole bunch of terms at once. Because we were talking about like full frame, like pocket and everything. So it's like there's cropped and then there's full frame.
That's why David's here.
Yeah. So I know just enough to be like, I kind of maybe know what that means.
Yeah.
So our cameras have, I mean, I don't even know all the details about the frames and all that stuff. But anyway.
Both the Nikons are full frames.
And then micro four thirds sensors are on the G7s.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Difference being just like the bigger the sensor lets more light in. So you get shoot in the dark a little bit easier, and then it also allows you to have like a wider field of view. So instead of just seeing like my face here, you'd see a little bit more content there around the edges.
Full frame is like a standard size. Is that like an inch or like how big is that?
It's bigger than an inch. I know that. It depends upon the camera manufacturer, because full frame is the term that's using the full sensor. You know, you're not cropping in on the sensor, which is why the other one's called a crop. But it just depends on the camera manufacturer, what you get, because full frame isn't just like one sensor size. Because like my drone has a 1-inch sensor.
So unless you're talking about something else, cropped is not an actual sensor. Cropped is like you're just cropping in on the image.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
Well,
he was talking about full frame.
Isn't it specifically called a crop sensor? Because you're only able to use so much, like in that type of camera. It's not that it's technically a smaller sensor.
So how I've seen it used is usually when you go up to the bigger resolutions. Like full 4K or something like that.
I do have to look this up, but that's okay.
So the order of common consumer grade sensors are, you're going to have micro four thirds being the smallest, and it's pretty tiny if you open up any of these cameras. And then you have APS-C sensors, and then you have super 35 millimeter, and then you have full frame, which is just a little bit bigger. And these sensors just keep getting bigger and bigger, and the larger they are, the more light hits them. Like I said, the shadow range, but it also opens up the image. Now, depending on some settings in the camera, like how many frames per second, how many shots the camera's making, will affect the sensor itself. So it'll start to crop in on the image. So a cropped image or a cropped sensor just means the sensor's able to do more and you're cropping in on it. But the sensor itself is still going to be a full frame Super 35 micro four thirds or APS-C.
No? Is that? Nope. Yeah, so you're shaking your head.
You're shaking your head. Correct me.
What's going on?
Looked it up.
Yeah.
So a full frame sensor is a 35 millimeter, right? That's the equivalent of a full frame.
So when something's called full frame, that means
35 millimeter. That's your full size sensor. A crop sensor is smaller than a standard 35 millimeter size, which introduces a crop factor to the photos these cameras take. This means that the edge of your photo will be cropped for a tighter field of view.
Okay. Yes. So I think I know what's going on. So if you have a full frame, oops, don't bump that. Don't bump my microphone.
Careful.
When you have a full frame, there's usually a setting that you can tell it to crop down to that other standard. Since it's big enough, you can go smaller inside of it. And sometimes that's necessary when you want like a higher frame rates or higher resolution, because you have less data, you can get it faster.
Right.
That's how I'm interpreting it. Could be wrong.
I just Googled it.
Yeah.
So.
What Google site did you get on? Yeah. We're doing a Google foo battle here.
So our cameras, I know for a fact, they do call it something else. It's called FX and DX. So that's going to be your full, and then I don't remember what the D stands for.
Dumb.
Dumb sensor. So it's going to crop in on the sensor.
Dang.
I'm looking here.
But there's the other part of this is that I think there's a lot of things that happen on a manufacturer level that are specific to the manufacturer.
Sure.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
sorry.
Yeah.
No, you're good. The correction here is there is super 35. There's 35 millimeter, right? And that's full aperture. Right. There's also Academy 35 millimeter, and that's what I was referencing. I'm sorry if I said super. I'm wrong.
Yeah, kind of.
Regardless,
Did you just say you were wrong?
yeah.
What?
Super
Wow.
35.
I'm so glad this is on recording.
It's the same.
Oh, what's the button? Is it this one? No.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Oh my God.
There has to be a happy sound.
Oh, it's so loud. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
we need to turn those
You
down.
got to turn down the pad, homie.
Dude, everybody just had their ears blown. We'll have to
I'll do them
fix that
all
in
again
post.
so we can fix it in post here.
No, you're good. They're all separate channels, so if you
Yeah.
want to use
Yeah.
it later, you can.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
will. We're good. I think the experience was nice.
But anyways, so we don't go down this crazy rabbit hole because we're way off subject. Okay.
Hey, this
First
is
off, Tristan
very
was wrong.
important.
So
It's very important.
it's very important.
This is probably more on subject to video production we've ever been.
That's true. We're not talking about phones. We're not talking about internet. We're not talking about streaming.
Yeah. This is the most
talk about
relevant
phones
conversation we've had on this podcast. Let's
We're
not
actually
derail it
talking about
just
it,
yet.
and it's something none of us actually knew for certain.
I know. That's what I love. Is like
Yeah, we're professionals here.
that's okay. But
doesn't
while
like-
you're doing what you're doing,
I'll
Yeah.
just show you that. That's it. That's all I got.
oh my gosh,
That is how I've always reviewed them. Is I go to the images. I don't read the text. That's my problem.
Yeah, you don't ever read. It's annoying. as
yeah.
heck.
See, that's the problem.
But that's the actual image of the sensor size.
Yeah.
You don't need more information when you're
Except
comparing the
things have
size of them.
names and
Yeah.
They're labeled.
They are labeled.
and-
They're labeled. It's the same thing as like TV resolutions.
Right, and aspect ratios.
Yeah, so those are all marketing gimmicks half the time.
Yeah, well,
Hey,
that you still have to abide by them when you go to the counter.
I
and
don't
you
have
go
to abide by anything.
when you go to the store and you say, I want a TV, and they ask what kind, you have to tell them how they market it. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to help you
I
at all.
bust out the spec sheet.
You bust up the spec sheet. You're like, I need a pixel density.
Or I do the Ron Swanson, which is I know more than you, and I just tell them to go away.
See, that's...
Yeah.
Although I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna need a TV with a VRR and I need a FPS of 144, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
and they're gonna go, huh? Huh? But anyways,
Yeah.
so back on the camera thing.
Yeah.
So-
what were we even talking about?
So, anyways, I was telling the story. So, so the sad part of all this is again, David was asking for my motivation. My motivation was what I had was broke, and I needed something that wasn't broke no more. So the fashion of myself and actually having the funds to do something this time, I was like, this makes me money. So what I buy, I should be able to recoup eventually down the line.
Yeah.
And I'd done a lot of research. I'd already had Nikon lenses, which didn't end up mattering. But
Yeah. Well, are you talking about the zoom lens?
yeah,
We still use that.
I originally wanted to also use the other lens, but then, like I said, it took a crap. So that was part of my plan. I mean, the Z6 was the camera. Like, that was my plan. And it just happened faster than I wanted it to happen. But I knew I wanted full frame. I knew I wanted mirrorless, and I knew I was going to stick with Nikon. So that left me with one choice pretty much. And I did not need a Z7 because I don't need 48 megapixels.
Yeah.
It
Nobody's buying a house based on them pixels.
Nah, I shoot everything at 24 and then I reduce to 8 before I send it. So you're like, and I like to shoot at 24 for my own because I'm a pixel peeper.
Well, you can see the full resolution on our website.
This is true. You totally threw me off.
Oh.
No, you're
You were
good.
talking
You're a
about your
pixel peeper.
upgrade, and you had upgrades sooner than you expected.
So my camera actually broke on a trip with my family, which I was super upset about because I usually take pictures throughout the whole trip. So I was unable to. So the minute I got home, I went out and bought the Z6 and never looked back. So, and that was really my main motivation. I knew I needed to upgrade. I think that down the line, there are equipment upgrades that can make a difference. I know some people say they're like, your equipment doesn't make a difference if you know your craft and this and that. And I get it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, now that I understand how a camera functions, I can go on my phone, use pro mode, and probably get a better image than most people. But again, there is a quality factor where you're getting that clarity of your shooting by having something that is better and functions better and it's faster. I mean, it was just the whole workflow. And that was the reason why I upgraded.
Like, for phones, they have cameras. You can probably do a lot of your shoots with the phone camera, but like low light performance is going to suffer like crazy because those sensors are just so small.
Right.
Go back and bringing the sensors back. I like that conversation. No.
Well, and the data that you can get out of a full frame sensor, like again, it does matter to have a larger.
Very powerful.
Yeah, the larger sensors get more data, and even if you put a 12 megapixel phone picture next to a 12 megapixel camera picture, you will still notice the depth.
Yeah.
And then that could take us into dynamic range. Because, that was another thing. I lacked a lot of dynamic range with the 5300. So when I changed to the Z6, my dynamic range was exponentially...
Just bracket more.
Well, you can bracket more, but the problem was I was still having that issue. Like, I'm telling you, you could not go high on that ISO before it was just green grain.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is bad.
Yeah.
This is so bad.
I'm going to do that thing where I'm going to ask questions.
No, that's good. That's why you're here.
Before bracketing, what is dynamic range? And then what's bracketing? What are those?
So dynamic range, and I'm sure Tristan will chime in here.
And be wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Starting with the Google
I'm going to
fight.
give it my best shot, and then I want you to add, because I know you might understand the technicality of it more. But to my understanding, dynamic range is the depth of data that you can get out of a photograph, and that is measured in stops. So the least amount of stops, the less data, the more data. And that enables you in post to be able to pull out shadows or highlights and still retain the data from those shadows and highlights because that data exists within the picture.
So having more stops is kind of like having more tick marks on your ruler to have like more precision on like how dark something is or how bright something is. Is that kind of how it is?
It's an increased. I feel like
just more information.
More ticks just means more information.
Yeah, because like if I took a picture of Tristan as he sits here in front of me now, so he's sitting at the podcast table, he's got his microphone, and let's just say I shot a little dark, and I would still have the ability to pull out more shadows, reduce the amount of grain, and still retain detail, which I think is the biggest thing, being able to pull light or push light and have the retaining of detail.
Yeah.
So is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's bracketing?
Do you want me to do it, or do you want
Tristan,
to?
you do it.
You want to switch off?
I want Tristan.
No, you're the photography boy. You know more. I was just gonna say, it's dynamic range is.
That's a cinema thing too. So
you wouldn't use bracketing so much for cinema.
no, but I mean dynamic range.
Oh,
that's what I was like. Chime in on that
so
for sure.
For dynamic range, it is just the range between true black and true white. So that's
way better.
That's really all it is. So
Yeah.
how much information can your camera capture between the blackest part and the whitest part? And some cameras just have more than others. You were saying your old one just lacked it. So what that would mean is whenever you go to color grade or like change values of making things brighter or darker, or you could shift my shirt that's maroon to a blue hue. The more data you capture, the easier it is to push those values around without the image falling apart.
Yeah.
So that's really all it does. And it's not needed. You don't have to have it to make photos or videos look good. But what it does is gives you the flexibility to change things in post-production.
Yeah.
Ta-da. Which is huge. I rely a lot on post-production.
Yeah. I
know not everybody does, but I do. I like to be able to have the flexibility because who knows how I'm feeling that day.
Yeah.
And the whole goal with real estate photography as well is to find a neutral balance. You want to pull the shadows up so that you can find the detail that's hidden within them. And then you also want to be able to take away the highlights to find the detail within those as well. When there's a window that's got a light shining through it, that's blowing out the white carpet from the white light from the sun, my goal is always to be able to pull that out so you can actually see the shadows and the fibers in the carpet so that it's definable.
Yeah, you see the same thing with interviews. Something with low dynamic range and a low bit rate of image captured. And they call it roll off, and that's like light on someone's face. So you have the brightest part and then the darkest part. And the more smoothly that shot blends, and it's not just like real bright and real dark, that all goes into that as well.
And even to the untrained eye, I feel like we never said anything, and you guys were to watch films that were, done with cameras that have higher dynamic range and some that don't, and you can see their grades and things, and especially in low light, like it's very noticeable because it's so clean and crisp, and you got so much detail. It's beautiful.
You can get artistic with it. There is in like photo editing software, there's usually an option called posterize, which is the opposite of increasing the dynamic range, where it reduces the amount of colors that are even present to use to describe the image. So I don't remember. It's like the Obama poster from like maybe 2008. That's like a posterized image where he is represented by only 4 main colors. And like that's a stylization, and that's kind of like the reduction of all dynamic range.
Yeah, it does,
which is super cool.
Yeah.
Which I normally am like, I go into Illustrator and I trace your face and I do all this stuff and make a vector, but that's just me.
Yeah, well,
as much
the cool
detail.
way. That's the artsy way to do it. But you can use just the button, just the button to do it for you.
He's like, it's a filter on Instagram.
Yeah, basically.
That's okay.
Yeah. Not insulting our Instagram users out there. We
Heck
love you.
No.
Yeah.
You guys probably have more followers than we do anyways.
Tristan's face. He's like,
bracketing. So that was the other thing you were going to ask me about.
What the heck is bracketing?
So what happens with bracketing is it's just an automatic way to set up on your camera that every time you take a shot, it changes your shutter speed, which I'm sure you're going
to... Questions.
Which...
you bring up words
It doesn't
again.
change ISO? It's
No.
Just, I'm learning
ISO.
something.
Yes. So your ISO stays at one set. Now, there might be a bracketing feature that specifically runs off of ISO, but what I am using is shutter.
ISO is the amount of light hitting. What is it? The light in the sensor?
So ISO is one of those weird things that it doesn't really stand for anything.
It doesn't?
Like I remember looking it up, and it was a really odd definition of what's happening with it here.
Right now.
But essentially, like ISO is one of those weird things that I don't fully understand. I just know that if I have too much of it, I'm letting too much light into the image, and it becomes grainy.
ISO.
I don't know.
What's up? What are you getting? Give me that Wikipedia entry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, no, it's pretty all over the place.
Yeah, no, it's really funky. Like I said, when I tried to do research on ISO, like it's not really clear cut.
I'm seeing, it's kind of weird because it's actually iOS, International Organization for Standardization.
Oh, that's not it. Okay,
Yeah,
here's Nikon's
What's yours?
webpage.
There you go. What are they saying?
ISO originally referred to the sensitivity of film.
Okay.
So
okay.
the light gathering ability of it. So the higher ISO rating, the greater the film's ability to capture the image taken in low light. So it was actually the physical property of the film that you were using.
Okay.
So you would use film with higher ISO for low light.
So we just inherited some old tech names.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
And so things that required a shorter exposure than a low ISO film was like high ISO, I guess. But for digital, it's like gain. Like you're just increasing,
changing the sensitivity to light.
That makes sense because it all works in conjunction. I mean, we can get real deep into this. Like, if you I know I'm thinking through this process because there's a lot to it. Like, both the shutter speed and the ISO work in conjunction. So if ISO is your sensitivity to the light, your shutter, the faster it shoots, right? The shutter is literally like a shutter. It works a little bit different with mirrorless and digital, but the faster the shutter, the less light because faster. The slower it shuts and opens, the more light you get.
Little photons have to hit your sensor before it closes the gate.
But here's the
photon. No,
but here's the problem: is when you use a fast shutter, you get lower light, but you were able to freeze your frame with more clarity. But if you are to use a lower shutter, then that's when you get motion blur, but you're also letting in more light, so you don't have to use much ISO. So it's all a balancing game.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing with photography.
If you ever seen an image with somebody with sparklers and they're like moving it around and then it like spells out a whole word or a shape, those are people that were shooting with their shutter like wide open. And that just means they left it open for a long time before they closed it. And it captured all of this light
That's
what?
a bulb.
Bulb.
Yeah, when you get all the way down to just a full-on open shutter and you're just like holding your shutter, that's it. Usually that's what it's called.
Have you ever done nighttime shots or anything?
Oh yeah. I've got a couple shots on my Instagram where I had Audrey run around the yard with her light on her phone, and she was kind of doing like movements like this. And it's light painting is a very cool thing, and we could get into that too. But that's all dependent upon what you're doing with your shutter. So how did we get
bracketing?
On this? Bracketing. I'm like, wow, how did we get from bracketing to this? But that makes sense.
This is complicated stuff to understand everything.
Yes.
I don't get it.
So the way that I use bracketing, because the problem is with if you were to use an ISO bracket, then you're going to pick your shutter speed, which is fine because you're going to know what your subject, like if you have a moving subject, that would matter. But again, if if that ISO pumps up to above 2000, really technically with photography, like with mine, I don't like to go much over like 14 to 1600. But you get that grain, and that grain is, you're letting in too much light. You're going to lose detail. Those are things that I try to avoid at all costs. So I'm huge on the lower the ISO, the better. Yeah. To retain that detail and to, reduce grain. Because that also, doesn't help in post-production.
Right.
So when it comes to real estate photography, I'm using the auto bracketing function, which will move your shutter in different directions when you shoot per how many shoots you want to do. So it's usually you have a 0, a 3, and a 5 option. So if you're on 0, it's off. If you go on 3, it gives you a section of 3 photos. And you have to click the shutter for each one, which is nice because you get focusing functions throughout that process. And I know different cameras work different ways, but this is how Nikon does it.
I was gonna,
Canon's different as well. So.
Shooting raw, having like the raw image, talking about like ISO and everything, that's going to change everything. But we don't shoot raw, so it doesn't even matter.
Well, I do.
Oh,
I only shoot in raw.
Oh. Well, for film we don't, but for photos, I know.
Photography.
Oh no,
that's what I'm saying. Like we're totally down the rabbit hole. So I hope that you guys wanted to hear about film and photography today because you're getting it
on our film and video production.
This is putting us to the test. I know, right?
You can actually you can change a lot of these settings in post production if you're shooting raw.
Yes, and I'll get to that in a second since we brought it up.
Yeah, so we can stop going down the rabbit trail.
No, well we got to talk about raw now, and that'll be quick. But so back to bracketing. So what I'm doing is it's automatically adjusting the shutter speed so that it's letting in more or less light each time it takes a photo.
Okay.
So I set a baseline. You pick your first shutter speed, and then you pick the increments at which it switches the shutter. And I know that's measured in stops. I don't fully understand that part. I just know it works for me. So I set it all the way at max, which is 2.0. So there's usually a pretty large gap in between light. But that's also why I use 5 instead of 3, because I get more increments. I have more options for light.
You shoot 5?
I do, and you were supposed to, but you didn't. So it's in the notes.
Out. So that gives you multiple versions of the same shot, and you can choose between them. Just like if one was too dark, one was too bright, one was too grainy.
So here's the whole reason. So none of them are grainy because I'm shooting at a low ISO.
Okay, yeah. So the low ISO, you don't have to worry about the grain.
No grain. All I'm messing with now is the amount of light. So it's either, that dark to light section, you're getting images that fall on that dark spectrum, but I don't want an image that has no detail because that does me no good. So I want something that falls on the end of the spectrum that gives me enough like shadow detail. And then I need something at the high end that gives me enough light detail that's in the highlights. So then what I'm doing is I'm taking those 5 images and I'm picking 3 from those and I'm merging them together.
You're doing manual HDR, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
You're doing what the little Apple advertised like 2 or 3 years ago. Like it takes multiple photos and it merges into one. Oh my gosh. Nobody's ever done this before.
I'm doing on my own what a computer now does for people in their hands.
So why do you do it on your own?
So the reason I do it on my own is because if the 2 largest camera brands or like phone cameras that are doing the most computing is Apple and Google with the Android, with the Pixel. Yeah. So that is a computer, an AI algorithm in a computer that tells the camera what to do in a split second. It goes, take this, Google, it says take this many shots and then pick out these elements and then merge those images to create one image for the end user.
Yeah.
So it's doing all the processing on its own.
Yes.
So whatever Apple or Google decides to do with that photo with their processing is what you get.
Yeah.
And there's no
flexibility.
There's no flexibility in that. You get what you get, and because of the sensor size and all of this good stuff, there's not a ton of editability to this as well.
Yeah.
Now with the new iPhones, you get Pro RAW.
Ooh, Pro RAW.
Which, so you can actually edit those photos. You get what the computer would have processed. You get the actual raw image of the merging, which is super cool. But I'm doing all of this manually because I need the flexibility at the end of the day to choose which shadows I want to get rid of, which highlights I want to get rid of to make the best real estate image.
Yeah, I like how you brought up the sensor size, because these tiny little circles, those sensors are like a Skittle, and the sensors in our Nikons is like a giant candy bar.
It's like 30 Skittles.
You have to take so many shots with just one tiny sensor to get any detail out of that without it being so noisy. And that's what that's that compensation is for.
Yeah.
And it does a great job. It's very impressive. Tristan constantly tells me how amazing the post-processing is on these phones. And it's
amazing.
The only thing that saves these cameras, because like those sensors really haven't changed that much over the past 10 years.
Nope.
It's true.
We're talking, you said Pro RAW.
Yeah, so this
RAW.
takes us back to what we were talking about. So another way to retain data in a photo is to shoot in what's called RAW. Now, I know RAW is like the main term for it. I'm sure it's an acronym because it's usually in all bold. But of course, because of the way the camera manufacturers work, we get a different version of that in every one of them. So I'm pretty sure Canon's like it actually is a file extension of RAW, but then like DJI comes out as a DNG. Nikon shoots in an NEF. They're all technically the same thing. It's just you're getting that unprocessed raw image with as much data as you possibly can get from your sensor.
Yeah, and they do a lot of that by reducing features that are built into your phones and your cameras, such as sharpening and saturation, and a lot of things that get added in. So that way when you take your photo, it's like, oh, it's just pretty, and you can post it on Facebook or whatever. But with these images, it compresses a lot of that color value into a middle ground, so that way you can start to stretch out. It's talking about the dynamic range. If you have dark down here and bright up here, it starts to compress all those, but it stores all that data, so that way whenever you go into your editing software, you can take it and stretch it back out, and take that like gray tone and make it black, and take that light white color and just push it straight up to white, and then you have this full range. Or you take that image and you have one raw, and then you have another raw that's closer down towards the bottom. You have another raw that's towards the top, and then you stack those all together with a bracket, and then you can
that's
make
HDRing,
and then you get all the shadows and all the mids and all the highlights,
which is high dynamic range, which we've already talked about dynamic range, so that should make sense now. A high dynamic range would be giving you even more above what you already have. Which if you take 3 images at 3 different light levels and stack those, again, you're just creating more data.
Here, watch is recording everything you're saying.
Oh my gosh. I know my phone went off when I said the G word, and then my watch went off, and oh look, it literally just gave me a calculate of some sort of math formula.
So the benefit of this too, of using RAW, and the downsides of it, the benefit is it gives you a ton of data, so you get to play around with a lot in post, and one of those things is ISO, at least with ProRes RAW, which actually outperformed B-RAW from Blackmagic cameras. I just watched a video on it.
This
is
so
nice.
This is video talk as well.
Yes.
Just so we're on the same page.
But it's the same concept, because instead of taking one photo, did we lose a light?
No,
it's getting dark outside. Maybe the sun.
Sun's going down.
My eyes just like going crazy.
Sun's getting real low, big guy.
Yeah, dude. I'm just like squirrel. So Blackmagic makes cameras, and they came out with this new thing called B-RAW, and it was supposed to compete with
everybody has to have their own
Apple
format,
ProRes RAW, and the difference between photo and video RAW is you're taking 24 raw shots or 60 raw shots per second.
Well, there's iframes and P frames and
Yeah, but
no, you worry about that.
but layman's.
Man, we sound so professional right now, you guys. Like, we know so much about cameras.
Layman term here. So you get these raw images, and you can store all this data and information in them, and you can change the ISO in post-production, which is super nice because
Awesome.
it's not just like you're getting more detail out of it. You can actually go in and manually change the ISO and a couple other features. And it's all in post.
Yep.
But the downsides is it takes up so much more room on your computer. It's
so big.
Your files will be about 10 times the size.
Yeah, so like, let's see. So like a photo that I took out of my phone, because I already know what, I can tell you the size of a photo out of my camera.
Tell me how big.
The camera, it's usually hovers around 32 megabytes per picture.
On your camera?
On my camera. As opposed to...
It's on the Nikon?
About 3 or 4.
Yeah, hold on. I'm just going to find one that actually... I was like, why are these pictures coming out at 9 megapixel? I think it's because I'm cropping it. But so I'm shooting like on my phone, an image is coming out at like 3 megabytes. Mm-hmm. So we're talking 10 times the data over what you're shooting on your phone, which is also why you're getting what you're getting. Let me see. I have a raw image here that I took from my phone. So let's see what it's... So look at that. So a raw image out of the phone is coming out at 25 megapixels. So that's your difference. I mean, post-processing is cutting it down way further.
Yeah.
Which if you use the Pro mode on your Samsung, you can get a raw image. Just saying.
On your Samsung.
Or
your iPhone.
Another side effect of using these sensors to capture more data. So with the Blackmagic cameras, their 6K came out. So you have 6K resolution. David, how much bigger is 6K than 1080p?
Ooh.
If I bought a 1080p TV, how much more resolution do you get?
Huge difference.
Gosh, I don't even know.
Because it's not 6 times the resolution. Like when you start to get into the facts here, it's actually a large amount of difference. Even 8K over 4K.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, that's where we're getting into the marketing terms. Is it usually...
Well, yeah, thank you.
2K usually just refers to like a 2000 pixel by 2000 pixel... Probably 2048, whatever.
Well, don't they call 1440p monitors 2K now?
Yes.
That's because the long side is 2K, but the short side is...
It's like an asterisk.
I don't know.
That's the problem.
It's so annoying.
It is.
Because it's 2 times 1080.
2 times.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No! Do not come here for math.
No!
Here, let's just Google it.
Like what we're really trying to get at here is we know a lot about the stuff.
Yeah, we're really good at all.
We know how to use it, know how to make it pretty.
But I mean,
So-
the other downside, I think, of all of that is...
Let me finish
no,
the
you're good.
6K. So the Blackmagic shoots 6K for like $2,000. I think you can get them for less than $2,000 now. It's a really good deal. So you get a camera that shoots 6K, but the reason they're able to get away with that is because like your camera it has a little computer inside. It can only do so many things at once, and you can only shoot 6K and capture this huge spectrum of pixels if you shoot in Blackmagic RAW. And the reason Blackmagic RAW is so cool is because it takes all that information and doesn't make an image with it. It takes that information and then you put it in your computer, and then it makes the image for you. So it does all the post-processing in post-process that would normally be done in the camera. And then if you want to do ProRes RAW on these cameras, it crops the sensor.
Oh no!
And so you take a 6K sensor, you use the full image or the full sensor to capture all the information, and then it takes that information and crops it down into 4K because you can't do that post-processing tactic with ProRes RAW like you can Blackmagic. You can't.
It's all part of the protocols. And coding.
Yeah.
So that the stats.
That is the difference between those two, and some of the informations.
And Tristan's a huge ProRes fan.
Yeah, he is.
It's still better. It still outperforms Blackmagic.
So we shoot everything in ProRes now.
It's 6,144 pixels by 3,456.
What is that?
6,000 by 3,000 pixels.
So
that's 6K.
That's 6K.
Because 6,000.
How many 1080s can I fit in my
That's a Super
6K?
35 sensor size. Really? 23 by 13 millimeter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Look at that. All the things coming together in
I know,
Blackmagic
right?
6K.
Man.
Man, we are organized on this podcast. Look at all that.
We're all learning so much together here, guys.
Do you remember growing up with 240p on the internet?
Oh my! Have you tried looking at a 240p video on YouTube?
I remember thinking that 720 was like a big deal.
Dude, people used to watch 240p on like computer monitors. If you try watch 240p on your phone now, your brain starts frying itself.
I wonder if it...
You're watching Pong.
Pretty much.
It looks
Is this
blurry
8-bit?
and blown up. I wonder if they're using weird like super sampling tactics to make it bigger and it makes it like all washed out. You know what I mean?
Like you think?
For sure.
You think
Yeah.
YouTube's doing some movie magic to save some money, or what do you mean?
Well, I think that the
AI.
If you know, you can
Machine
scale
learning.
it like
8K.
I forget what it's called. It's called like nearest neighbor scaling. When you like zoom in on something, it just makes the pixels bigger and it doesn't try to make it more smooth.
It tries to blend the colors between the nearest pixels.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's doing, and it just looks like blobby. And like I can't tell what anything is anymore.
Yeah. It's weird to think that was when we grew up, and now how many 240p's? How many 144? Is it 144? Is it
144 is the lowest.
Yeah. How many 144p's can I fit in a 6K?
Oh
that
my
is basic
gosh.
math.
That is basic math. Hold on, he's gonna
do the math.
David's doing the
Dude,
math.
how much better are TVs now than they were when we were kids?
That's a big difference.
187 times better.
6,000 divided by 140. That is 21,000 times the.
Wow. Could you imagine editing a video back in the day on like your mom's Handycam, and you're like,
I did it.
I think those. I don't remember what was the resolution for something like that. Was it like 480?
It was
360.
It's 16 by 9, something like that.
Actually, I'll be honest with you. I do know for a fact that my first camera that I would have edited footage on, because it wasn't film, it wasn't on like a super, or what was it? What was the 8? High 8 or Super 8 or something film.
Hisense.
There's Super 16.
Super 8.
There's Super
There was
8.
Super 8? That's what the what's the guy's name? He ruined Star Wars. For everybody blames him for ruining Star Wars.
What?
There is Super 8.
Yeah,
and
Super 8 is a movie, and it's.
Are you talking about Spielberg?
No, the other
he
guy.
did Super 8.
J.J. Abrams. He made a movie called Super 8, and it was filmed on Super 8.
Was it Abrams? I didn't think
Why?
that was
that
Abrams.
was Abrams.
Why? Was it a meme?
Because he liked the camera, and the film was also about the camera. There's like kids running around with the Super 8 camera.
Did
so
you
it was
watch it?
shot on a. Yeah, I watched it.
That was
It
J.J.
good.
Abrams.
Yeah.
Oh, Spielberg was a producer.
He
Sorry.
produced it. I'm pretty sure it was shot on a Super 8. I could be wrong.
Hey, that's a great movie. Not gonna lie.
You liked it?
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah. So you did something with Super 8?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that we used back in the day. That was the camera because you had to put in the little tapes and stuff, and I thought that's what it was called. But I have one. I think I might still have some at the house, so I can let you guys
Show
know.
and tell next time.
Maybe, yeah.
Comparison test.
But I was the Sony Handycam that we had. The first one that I would have shot with that I could have done editing with the footage was it was 1080i.
Ooh, 1080i. So that's a whole thing.
Interlaced, right?
Yeah, that's.
But it was insane.
Yeah.
You were like, it was HD. You were like,
Tell
what
me
is
about
this?
those horizontal lines, David.
Oh no. Interlacing frames.
What's the difference between P's and
every
I's, man?
second on a screen with older televisions, it was easier to update all the even lines of pixels.
Speaking to your mic, sir.
All the even I'm trying to back up so you can see my hands.
Speaking of the mic.
I want to see your...
On older TVs, it was easier to update every other line of pixels every frame because on the screens there was glowing phosphorus. That's what made it show up and become colorful. It was phosphorus. It would still
Sounds
be
healthy.
glowing by the next screen, and if they tried to update it every single frame, it would be very blurry and weird. And so they found a trick where they could update every other frame, every other line, and so it'd do all the odd ones one frame and all the even ones the other one, and it was an interlaced thing where every once in a while And like we couldn't tell, but it would just be like
we can tell now.
We can tell now because we have progressive frames where it does all of them at the same time, and so that's where 1080p is.
So part of this led to an issue with so when did I come out? Like when did interlaced footage come out? Because wasn't it in the early 2000s, late 90s?
Well,
or earlier.
They're using interlacing like forever for TVs.
Really, forever?
Well, I mean, yeah, that was their solution.
I didn't think it was a problem until digital.
It became a problem when it came to make it digital, because when we wanted to show, like, convert from interlaced to progressive, now we have global, but not a lot of things use global shutter, which is we're getting screens that can globally update a whole frame at once.
Yeah,
which means a frame, boom, everything's changed.
Yeah, we were talking about like the shutter gates and how long they're open. It would just be instant for the whole thing.
Yep, it's the same thing for when you're capturing. That's why Tristan's saying shutter. When you're capturing a photo, you can progressively capture all the data. And there's also cameras that globally, and it captures it all at once.
Yeah,
and those are super expensive.
So actually they're getting a lot more affordable. Cheaper. You can get them for like the cheapest one I've seen is probably the Z Cam, and I think theirs is about $4,000 to $6,000 depending on which model. Yeah. But like compared to a long time ago,
right?
Pretty affordable.
Wow, this has been going on for a long time.
Interlaced?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
actually, if you go to the Wikipedia, they have a GIF that shows you how interlaced works, how it updates image in slow motion.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
It's super cool.
But the thing I was going to say is a lot of, as far as I'm aware, you don't film interlaced. It's just a way to display the image, right?
Correct. Well,
I would say older digital cameras may have started.
Right. Yeah.
When they were first made. They probably did record and interlaced, but then we found out progressive is just butt tons better.
But like for film, there wasn't an option. Like if you're shooting on film, that wasn't an option. So what happens is all these old movies that were shot on film have high fidelity images.
Yes.
And then they sent them out, and then they got turned into interlaced, and then they got put on TVs. So then everybody bootlegs and screen caps them. So unless that original footage is captured somewhere else, we're stuck with these bootlegged knockoffs of all these films with interlaced footage, which is really sad. But there's a couple of remastered films that come out, and then they release the progressive version because the original film just has so much more data than our TVs were even able to relay, or our computers, or even, I'm sure, phones. I don't know how when that window of I and P changed.
There was a period of film history where video quality got a lot worse because of TVs.
Yeah.
They would record runs of televisions because they didn't have the ability to record it and transmit it over the air. So they would put a camera in front of a TV and record the TV, and that would be the master of a TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way.
Yeah, it makes me feel really good about our setup.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Those guys.
Here I was mad we couldn't shoot 240 FPS.
What are they doing?
Dude, and then like 40 years, people are going to make fun of us because the Elon chip's just going to record everything our eyeballs see. Just everything's just going straight to the cloud.
Stuff on a flat screen. What are you doing?
Yeah,
watching it in your mind.
Yeah,
mind play, Grandpa. Just use the mind play.
Play Minecraft.
Hey,
oh my gosh.
You mean it's like a Minesweeper?
It feels like you blow up. It's amazing.
Yeah. I have no idea how long we've been running.
About an hour and 20 minutes.
That's what I thought. I thought we started around 6, so I'm feeling like,
great.
Maybe a little less.
Like we got a solid run.
Well, we had a lot of other topics, guys, but this was great because we talked about, I mean, these are the things that we like to think we're knowledgeable in and that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Googling on stuff that we were supposed to know.
We only Googled like 2 or 3 things.
To be honest, it's stuff that I have a feel for, but I don't know the exact science of it. So like, if I'm looking at it and I'm editing it, I know what it is and I know how it works.
That's all that matters.
To explain it, you know, that's the real kicker.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that could tell you all of these facts and know all the history and all that stuff, but still, if you can't put it into practice into your day-to-day, then what's the use?
Yeah.
We learn what we need to know, and then everything else just goes away.
I know how to match colors on between cameras, and the skin tones look sweet.
Finally. No,
Wow.
I'm kidding.
It is color science it's a science. Like it really is such a weird thing for people to grasp. And same with audio as we're figuring out. We're gaining so much knowledge in audio and audio and visual.
I'd rather audio than color any day though. Like just saying. I'd rather deal with audio because it clicks way more when I can close my eyes and listen to something. And I understand that process.
Well, that's
but I've been in music for a long time.
I do not have an ear for it. You guys make fun of me all the time.
It is atrocious.
I'm like, dude, Nest Hub
gosh.
sounds great. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Listen to the last episode if you want to hear us roast on him. No, we talk about speakers and headphones.
Yeah, I wore those before the podcast. I don't know if I could last like an hour in those things.
The what?
Yeah,
and I know they're high quality.
A little bit.
I know they're high quality, and I know you like them, and I'm sure they sound great because they do sound really good. But the comfort of headphones it's such a weird thing.
I get it. I totally get it. Don't get me wrong. I don't know what happened. Maybe there's something wrong with my ears. I do feel like maybe the masks are pulling our ears forward. I don't know.
You said you feel like clothes are unnatural, so I mean, if you just
It's not that I feel like they're unnatural. No.
What?
No, he's taking my what I said out of context and putting a spin on it here. It's not that I think that they're unnatural. I feel better when I have clothes on. I'm
clothes on?
Yes. I just hate the fact that like it's something you have to keep up on and they don't last. You have to do all this stuff. You have to buy more and there's styles and all this stuff because I'd much rather be able to wear the same thing every day and and then spend my money on technology.
Gray Bros Media. We're just gonna get gray shirts.
Have you seen?
It's called a Growfit.
The YouTuber Tom Scott. Have you seen his videos? He does educational videos, but his shtick is one day like 10 years ago, he just threw out all of his clothes and he went to Amazon and ordered like 20 red shirts and 20 blue jeans, and that's his wardrobe.
There's a couple people that are like that. There's another YouTuber that wears the same thing every time and it's like a whole thing. Does that Make Art Now?
Maybe. I know there's a media creator, somebody that makes like video based content like about filmmaking and stuff that wears gray shirts all the time. And that was actually what made me think of start doing it. And I really want to, but I want us to have like cool branded shirts for it.
No, so here's the thing, guys.
Cool branded shirts.
So
Cole.
no matter, I don't know how long it's going to take to get everything printed, but I'm getting everything taken care of this week.
Oh yeah,
so get ready.
Is it happening?
It's happening. Well, I finally got paid. So,
wow! Finally got paid.
So I'm gonna go in and use those funds to get us some shirts, and I'll tell David, but it's going to be a surprise for Tristan. I'm going to get him a one-off specific shirt for him with a special design.
Does it say Bing Bong?
No, just relax.
All right. Well, that's my one guess.
I am so excited.
Yeah,
I am really excited.
I don't even know what it is, and I want it to happen.
3 years in the making.
Yeah. So we're going to do a one-off just for Tristan, and then
He's very interesting.
We're going to get Triflix shirts, guys. So hopefully, as long as the printing process doesn't take too long, we should have our new shirts by the next podcast. So
What? That is fast.
Sweet.
Wow.
Yeah,
look forward to that.
If we like them, we might shout out who made them and then order a ton more because I like shirts.
Yeah.
I like shirts.
No, I would much rather be able to show up every time. And like I said, I would much rather be able to show up and just wear my Triflix shirt on the podcast. Or
we get some color variants.
We're going to have to do some color variants because we're going to order black right off the bat, but we'll go from there.
It's summertime, man.
Yeah, can we get like the main 3 colors?
Yeah, but it's like every time I wear white, like I always get something on it.
Oh, you sweat through it.
Let's do the orange, like peach, and the blue.
I'm not trying to do
those.
Well, whatever.
Get some heathers in there.
We'll talk.
So next episode, we always say what we're going to talk about, and we make something up. So I'm just going to say we're gonna leave this
NASCAR.
The people. No, no.
NASCAR. Yeah, NASCAR.
No, I actually was listening to something about NASCAR the other day, but that is not
it's
worth talking about.
That's a fun fact. I got my name. My name is from a NASCAR movie.
Cole.
Yep.
They invented the name Cole.
Just saying.
It's never been used before.
No, I'm not saying that it hasn't been used before, but my parents, that's where the name came up that they liked, and they used it. So, and it was from that movie. It's from an 80s movie. So,
that's
all right, everybody.
My name's from a movie too. Yours not special.
Next week, we're going to talk about how we paid to put our name on a NASCAR.
David, what's your name from?
My name is from the Bible.
I was gonna guess that.
Yeah.
King David. It means beloved.
Didn't he like?
Oh, I thought it was
cheat or
David
something?
and Goliath.
That
Aren't you?
Yeah, his
twirling
last name's
rocks?
Goliath. David Goliath.
No,
His
that's
middle
not what I
name's
meant.
Ann.
I thought that was the David
Yeah.
you were talking about, not King David.
It's the same guy.
Same guy.
Didn't he cheat?
Yeah.
Anyways, on next episode, we'll dissect this.
Didn't he cheat?
I don't know.